Well, thank you so much, and thanks to Bryan Innovators for inviting us to this Retail and Commerce Summit. This is just a great time of year. Grocery shop is really a crossroads for our business, so I appreciate it. And I guess we're now the second fireside of the day, but I'm joined here by Ramesh Kollepara, and you're VP and Global CTO of Kellanova. And today we're going to kind of go through a little bit of your journey through technology and the connecting of the pieces of Kellanova in terms of bringing AI and digital technologies to market. So I'm excited about it. Welcome. I'll do a quick introduction of myself. Bryan McGuirk, I'm CRO, Chief Revenue Officer of Stingray. Stingray is an audio company in all its forms. We run 100 radio stations in Canada. In the US, we have 30 plus CTV channels. We also, in our fastest growing business, is our in-store audio business. So we today have 30,000 stores across North America, including a number of brands we just talked about with the Great American Beer. So Albertsons, Kroger, you name it across the board. So Ahold, Giant Eagle, CVS, many others. So we're in every DMA in the U.S. and it's just a terrific medium, but big in both grocery and drug. So why don't I begin with just a question for you, Ramesh. Kellanova is a name that a lot of people don't know. It's a one-year-old company, but you have 118 years of legacy here. So why don't you explain that to the folks here?
Thank you, Bryan. Hi, everyone. Yes, that's correct. So roughly around this time last year, October 2023, the Kellogg company that you're all very familiar has been split into two companies. Kellanova, that's the company that I work for. We are a global snacking-led powerhouse. And WK Kellogg Company, which is a North America-based cereal company.
Yeah, well, it's been a very successful spinoff, and you have brought growth to a category that I think most people have been wowed by. So it's obviously been a great year. So
exactly, and probably you're all very familiar with our brands like Pringles, Cheez-It, Pop-Tarts, RX bars. So we're a house of brands. That's what Kellanova is.
Yeah. And I didn't really go far enough in my introduction, so I'm going to add a little more. But in your role as CTO, you've led large-scale transformations. You've been a trailblazer in integrating AI into traditional food manufacturing and product development. So this is a unique moment to kind of tap into one of the smartest people in CPG. So thank you for doing that. I'm going to jump right in with a question.
Sure.
The role of technology is an enabler for brand marketers. I mean, how can you share how you're partnering with your IT teams and marketing teams currently, and how that differentiates your project?
Great question, Bryan. So if I reflect on in the recent past, I think the role of technology in the space of marketing has evolved significantly, especially in the last 5 to 10 years. And I've been experiencing this both wearing my role as a CTO and also as a consumer for the brands. And you can actually see this evolution in various different ways. So for example, actually, there is increased amount of personalization for the brands. That's the need of the hour. There is more omni experience that's expected from the brands. Again, another popular thing that needs technology. And also your customers and consumers are looking for unified experience. So there is a big shift from that sort of an exposure marketing to more of engagement marketing. For me, these are all actually partnerships between the marketing teams and technology teams. And I have to really say this, our brand marketeers are already in the forefront of technology in form of the digital transformation, using the latest technology, data, and insights. So they're pretty much in front of it. But something that is very unique for us in Kellanova is we, as IT function, we operate with the principle called one team mantra. That means we partner with our functions. We actually have the same roadmap between the function and IT teams. And this partnership goes all the way from the top to the ground level and the ecosystem. And you will see that actually manifests in various different ways in terms of how we run our POCs, how we actually execute large-scale transformations, and how we engage actually our consumers. We do this in various different ways. So for example, we co-host the data summits, we actually run hackathons. So this is all part of the culture that we have as a one team and work very closely with our functions.
Interesting. So you're doing hackathons, and I mean, that sounds very organic. So it makes me think of how do these projects come to life? Are they top-down, sort of guided initiatives, or are they organic, bottom-up kind of projects that just happen and come into your office that way?
I have to say it's a mix of both. So from the top down, there is a need and it's required to send a sense of urgency that the technology is crucial and we are open as a company to be taking the ideas at all levels. And we have that culture in our company actually, which allows people to submit the ideas, share the ideas, and increase that sort of a curiosity muscle. At the same time, there is healthy ecosystem of bringing those ideas into the governance framework that we have set up so that we can actually run past all the ideas that come from the bottom up, map it to our strategy, and we progress constructively there. So I have to say it's a mix of both top-down initiatives and bottoms-up.
Interesting. That makes it tougher. I mean, to keep your arms around all of it, I imagine. But I mean, thinking, just speaking further about AI. I mean, how do, take us through kind of how you look at a project. It lands on your desk. I mean, what steps do you take to really structure a project?
Yeah, especially I think the last 2 years with the advent of generative AI and the whole sort of switch from the ChatGPT and the GPT models, there is a lot more enthusiasm and excitement across the organization. I will always say this. First, you always start with what business problem we are solving. Technology and AI should be a means to solve the problem, not rather than actually, it should not be for the sake of technology. So first and foremost thing, be clear about what business problem we are solving. Then second, convert that business problem into a data problem. And once you convert it into a data problem, you go through the governance. So we have actually introduced a very robust governance ever since actually the invention of AI, and we have actually changed it in the last couple of years to acknowledge and amplify based upon some of the advancements that were happening, and be clear about what problem we are solving, right? And then you have the right ecosystem of the partners. I think it's immensely important to have the partner ecosystem at the moment because you cannot solve all the problem by your own. Then the next important thing is you be clear about how you actually take that sort of idea to all the way to the end. And you have the checks and balances, you have appropriate gates in the process. And throughout this, partnerships are super important. So for me, bringing the new ideas, especially in this sort of age of AI, taking them through all the way from ideation to go live, is immensely important, keeping consumer and people at the center.
Interesting. So it definitely is, people-oriented, but it's fascinating, kind of the approach you've taken and really the structure that's brought it to life. I'm curious, what do you see as the most significant opportunity for AI investment to drive innovation? And there's a number of other CPG marketers in here. I mean, what should they be looking at as the biggest opportunity for this industry?
I think AI is probably going to fast track some of the innovations that were there before, some of the probably possibilities that couldn't happen. And I can see AI can play actually a role in every part of the function. It brings the organizations together. So I think the biggest functions probably that will benefit from AI will be marketing, supply chain, how you interact with your customers, consumers. I think across the enterprise, there will be a significant shift in which how we actually solve the problems. Let me put this question back to you, Brian. Actually, how are you seeing actually in your industry the trends in the AI and how you are approaching AI?
Well, Stingray is using AI in almost everything we do. It really has transformed our business. We have a product we call Sonata that's behind our firewall. It is a mix of ChatGPT 4, a little bit of Bard, and it's our own proprietary. So we're able to kind of feed it proprietary information. So today we use it for everything from script writing to RFPs to we're even producing one of our fast channels with it. So one of those fast channels is 90% AI produced, and
Wow, that's interesting.
and so it's hitting. In sales, we use it for proposals all the time. I describe it to my team as it's the best intern you ever had. But you have to talk to it like an intern and give it incremental advice and keep asking it for refinement. And actually, a couple of our team are here and they use it almost every day. So,
excellent.
So anyway, that's a big part of what we're doing. In terms of what you're doing, I'm very interested in how do you measure results of these projects. I mean, there's a lot of them going on. You have, and how do you tolerate success and risk as you kind of balance that out here?
Yeah, for me, the advent of the whole generative AI and the advancements is something actually very, very unique in the recent past. So we approached it slightly differently in our organization. And first and foremost thing, we have actually kept the threshold that, okay, not every idea that comes to this stage will go to the fruition. I think my sort of rough guidance is probably around 15% at max, the ideas will actually turn into realistic projects. So we set the expectations out. The next important thing is we signal the organization that we are open for learning. We used to call actually curiosity sessions. So these are the sessions we have introduced a couple of years back across the organization so that actually every individual can learn, understand what's there, what's going in the market, and how do you really actually turn those sort of ideas in a small and iterative way into a big idea and put it through the system, right? So in my view, you will only probably get around 15% of these ideas going through the funnel. You need to be open for it. The lessons probably you'll learn actually will be incorporated into the next elements or next iterations.
Okay. In one of our pre-talks, you mentioned something that stuck with me, that AI is listening for recipes. And I thought, how can AI write recipes? How are you using that in your business?
I think, yeah, so by now, I think all of you probably are aware, generative AI can actually do recipe writing, they can give you all the ideas. So I think it's again invoking that curiosity muscle. What is the art of possibility? And how do you really bring that in a responsible way into the organization? So we all know that actually generative AI can pretty much create the next generation recipes. It gives you some wonderful ideas. And creating that whole ecosystem of getting those ideas out, testing, experimenting, what sort of probably outputs you can see, and how does actually they impact in the real world is something that we have been focused on.
Wow. Well, that's excellent. And I wanted to change gears a little bit because this kind of big change requires a little bit of a culture change at the same time. So how do you manage that culture change, and what are you putting in place to kind of bring people up that curve?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. In my view, actually, the big shift on this generative AI, it's the cultural change. And we have been very blessed from a Kellanova perspective. We always focused on the culture and people first. So we created these safe spaces of experimentation in our organization. So we run what we call it as a curiosity sessions. These are the sessions actually which helps the broader organization to learn what actually the power of generative AI is all about, submit the ideas, provide an ecosystem wherein which actually those ideas can be taken from the concept stage to all the way to the proof of concept. And clearly set the expectation that not every idea that comes actually will come into the fruition. So I always call this one out. Probably 10 to 15% ideas will move all the way from the ideation stage to the real life examples. Creating that sense of openness in the organization is super important. Whenever there is sort of a seismic shift like this, generative AI, you have two ways to really approach it. One is take the approach of being open, actually educate your organization, go in this what I call it is a co-pilot mode, that is keeping people in the center while technology can actually be that sort of a power, versus going the other extreme, directly pushing too much tool across the organization. We always balance this approach. So some of the sessions, what we call it as a curiosity sessions in the organization, we had roughly around 6,000 people actually attending them. That's almost like 25 to 30% of our organization attending, learning, improving their curiosity muscle, and taking this back into their function and improving their day-to-day processes. So this is the way how we have actually approached it, rather than going the other way of really pushing something top-down.
I mean, that's an amazing stat. I mean, 6,000 people to be exposed and to be using this. I mean, what technology are they going? Is this, you had mentioned in one of our discussions, Microsoft Copilot. Does that play a role in all of this?
Yes, we do use Copilot. We're using several generative AI technologies. I think one of the things that I call out at this stage is don't be really too much fixated with the one technology. This is a technology that is evolving. It will continue to evolve. Keep people at the center. Be open about the technology. But definitely Microsoft Copilot played a key role in our evaluation. So we run what we call it as a curiosity sessions. These sessions are done pretty much like 3 to 4 times over a week. And there is a specific schedule for it. All it does is to understand the ideas that are coming actually improve individuals' ability to use generative AI, while also establishing the guiding principles, what sort of probably controls we can have. We have always taken that approach of trusting our people, educating our people, listening to our people, because the next best idea will actually come with the power of generative AI, but it will come from our people.
That's impressive. What about the ones that might resist a little bit? I mean, there's always a few in every organization. They're like, I like the old way of doing it. I mean, how do you kind of bring them along and deal with that sort of push-pull?
Yeah, I think I have to say, as Kellanova, we have a wonderful culture actually of trusting our people, bringing our people together. So definitely our ecosystem and our sort of broader company culture helps in this sort of seismic shifts. It's probably more of iterative way. I think the most important thing I'll call out in these sort of shifts is you'll probably need to think about twice, thrice, while also keeping the guiding principles very clear. Because anything around high risk, so we clearly categorize the power of generative AI and how it can be actually brought into the organization. So anything around high risk, we actually have our guardrails. So giving them more opportunities and taking them probably with second or third iteration, ultimately people will see that sort of end game here in my view. Also, it's important to call it as a co-pilot rather than autopilot, because I still think that people will play a key role in this evolution of generative AI. You cannot expect actually to do everything without people. Only thing that will change is it will move the people from doing some of the mundane, basic work to a more higher level intellectual work. And I think that sort of thought process needs to be very open. We have signal actually coming all the way from our CEO, Chief Growth Officer, Chief Information Officer. So it's important to really send the messages at all levels, create that sort of a space of freedom. I call it as a freedom within framework, and continuously providing that opportunity so that eventually people will see what's it there for them, rather than actually accepting it as something that is being pushed organizationally.
So you introduce this now to 6,000 people. You've gotten them to take risks and even fail without any issue. So looking ahead, how do you bring it from this introductory phase to full strategy? What is your plan?
For me, this all needs to really resonate and fit into the overall company strategy, right? So these sort of failures that happen in the initial phases, you incorporate that into the lessons. I always say this, you'll only have probably 15% success in this phase. Incorporating them into the sort of broader strategy and taking your people together is the key element. For me, generative AI or AI is not something that's like what you call it as is a secret component. It's the culture that needs to be really clear here. And your generative AI is probably a function of utilizing that company macro culture and ecosystem to be used for. And one more thing I will call out here is whenever I say there is only 15% chance for you to be success here, you need to really embrace those failures, learn lessons, encourage your leadership to see in that sort of a mode, because traditionally probably some organizations were always around, it has to be successful, it has to be right in the first time. You need to change that muscle from that sort of being right all time, first time, towards iteratively learning lesson and incorporating it to the next iteration. So for me, the advent of generative AI emphasizes the cultural sort of shift that needs to happen in the organization. And I'm very, very thankful for our extended teams and our leadership to actually absorb this sort of a shift. Started working actually towards that sort of a new guidance and utilizing this generative AI as a tool into the broader ecosystem.
Well, if you've had, only 15% successes and you're able to fail fast, you must have had some big positive successes here. So, are you allowed to name any of those or talk to kind of areas where it's just that you're very proud of?
Yeah, so I think one of the big success that we have is the Copilot that has been probably pretty much embedded into our organization now. Beyond Copilot, actually, we have several other functional tools. So, for example, Mr. P is our sort of latest sort of proof of concept that went through all the gates.
Who is Mr. P again?
So, Mr. P is our Pringles mascot. With the advent of generative AI, we actually brought more of life to Mr. P. So Mr. P now interacts with the consumers and have a chat with the consumers. So bringing that sort of a fun element and having that interaction with your consumers is a very, very latest advancement that we did. Beyond that, we had several other success actually in the space of generative AI.
That's amazing. And any other examples of how AI has worked really well for you?
We have a bunch of examples. Actually, I have to say, one is the Copilot. That's something that now the tons of probably pages of the documentation you don't need to really go through. You will get the initial indication, and then your process owner will be able to really synthesize this and take it forward. That's probably one example.
How about on the media modeling side? Anything there?
Yes, so I think from a media modeling side, we have some latest sort of advancements and actually learnings as well. Again, how effectively you spend your media marketing, moving from that sort of full funnel from the top to the down, generative AI actually played a key role in the recent past.
Excellent. Well, flipping that on its head, what hasn't worked as well, and what should your peers in the room try to avoid? Any learnings there?
I think the biggest probably learning I will say is don't expect 100% success while using this sort of a generative AI and the latest advancements. Because organizations wired for success. Organizations are wired for probably not allowing things to fail. Focus more on the culture, focus more on the people, let those sort of failures happen. But it's important you learn those lessons very quickly and incorporate into the next cycle.
Yeah, I can attest that just fear of the unknown, it was very big for me personally. So I had our chief of innovation gave me a little private lesson on how to deal with this new intern. They do training in our company, but that's probably something more. in terms of assuming you had no constraints and you had a magic wand, what would you change about your current approach to AI?
I will probably say that we will expand the experimentation with the broader ecosystem because, in my view, AI is all a team play. So, with your sort of vendors, customers, consumers, expanding that sort of a play and doing more proof of concept so that end to end value stream, you will actually drive more value.
And for me, it's the more company training. So I think that idea of just getting everyone active and and doing that. In your company, are you able to like isolate and check where people aren't using it and come up with ways to deal with that?
Yeah, I think what we do is we encourage people actually. So this is something that as a Kellanova, we have I will say probably a wonderful culture of learning. So we encourage people to use more of generative AI and the latest advancements, come up with those ideas. So we do lots of hackathons internally, bring those ideas and take them through actually a sort of a path towards the projects and make them happen in the real world.
And what would you pick as the best and highest value starter AI project that someone in this room could take to the market next year?
I think Copilot has been a game changer in my view. And adoption of Copilots probably is something that will be a game changer.
Great. Well, I think I've covered most of our topics here today, and I just want to thank you for sharing the successes, the connections in your company, and a bit on the culture that really is driving success. So really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Good. Thank you guys. With that,